Employee of the Year, Episode 2, Chet Eubanks as Mr. Meat. Written by Jeremy M. Gottwig and narrated by the author. For more information, go to strangeshuttle.com. All one word, strangeshuttle.com. Chapter 1. "We still have burgers, right?" Chet hoped. Into the kitchen he shouted, "Please tell me we have more burgers." "What a pain," he heard Beatrix grumble. Chet and Beatrix had 20-some unfilled orders between them. Only after a waiting customer raised a literal stink did Chet realize that the kitchen had ceased production.
"Gra-la-ra-la-la, ra-la-ba-ra-ra,"
said Pox. Despite the universal viral interface, neither Chet nor Beatrix could understand the sharp-toothed mound of jelly. Few aliens seemed able to understand him. Shiru, their other cook, was one of those few. "My friend Pox tells me that we have run out of your Earth meat," the lanky humanoid translated in his dead monotone voice, "but he informs me that he has found another substance which could suffice." "What substance?" Chet pressed.
"Ra-la-ha-la, ra-la-gra-ha-ha-ha," replied
Pox. "My friend Pox has spotted an Ororoi in our line of customers. He believes the flesh of the Ororoi will taste not unlike this meat." "Oh," replied Chet.
"Ba-la-ha-la, gra-la-ra-la."
"And this is an important point, I believe," continued Shiru. "My friend also tells me that the Ororoi can regrow limbs." Chet shook his head. "We aren't allowed to butcher our customers." "Manager, sir, I was instructed to read the employee handbook, which included a 10 Commandments of Burger Zone. There was no such commandment." "No, we still can't." A deep, gravelly growl began to emanate from Pox. Chet glanced at the gelatinous alien. Their eyes locked. Well," Chet mumbled. Pox had a broad smile full of shark-like teeth. His smile widened. At no point did the alien's pair of flat, saucer-sized eyes shift, blink, or adjust in any way. Chet's pulse raced. He felt small as he disappeared into the gaze. The alien's growl rose an octave. "Hey!" A poke in the ribs broke the spell. Chet met Beatrix's cold brown eyes. She crossed her arms and asked, "So what am I supposed to do, manager, sir?" It was the first time she had spoken directly to him all day. "I'm not the—" Chet started before he realized that Beatrix was mocking him. He dropped his gaze to the deck and took a step back. "I guess I should go talk to Mr. Farrow." "Before or after the food riot?" This was a more difficult question. Grumblings, moans, clicks, snarls, and a variety of other dissatisfied sounds had spread across their mob of alien customers. The sounds hinted at a latent outburst. "I'll make it quick," Chet promised. "Do I look like your personal riot cop? You ain't gonna leave me alone up here." Chet cringed. Please don't go anywhere. Sorry." He scrambled into the kitchen and knocked on Mr. Farrow's office door. Several seconds passed. Chet knocked again. The door clicked. Chet figured that his manager, Mr. Farrow, had unlocked the mechanism from the inside. He could see the man's shadow in the gap between the bottom of the door and the floor. The shadow receded. "Please come in." Chet pushed the door open and found Mr. Farrow sitting behind the short shelf they had converted into a desk. "We're out of meat," Chet said. "There will be a shipment tonight." "All right, so what do we do for now?" "You improvise. Don't forget that we brought you here because of your ability to make keen decisions under pressure." "Right, okay, I'll improvise." "Just a second, I want to show you something." Mr. Farrow beckoned Chet toward his desk with a wave of his hand. "But—" "This won't take more than a second. Here, I'm sure you'll find this interesting. Shut the door." Chet yawned and followed the instructions. He was exhausted. "Have a seat. Take a look at this chart." Chet fought the urge to retreat and make his apologies later. "There might be a situation out there, and the sooner you sit and look at this chart, the sooner you'll be able to resume your duties." Chet couldn't argue with that logic. He grabbed the nearest sitting platform he could find, a bucket in this case, and landed his butt on the top. He didn't bother flipping it. "Given that this is the end of our first week aboard this ship, I figured I would put together some data in an easy-to-consume format. Take a look at this chart." Chet took the paper. "And this chart. Anything stand out to you?" Chet pretended to give the charts a hard look. It didn't take more than a glance to figure out that they had something to do with sales. Not really, replied Chet. From experience, he knew it was faster to let Mr. Farrow have his say. These dots represent revenue, projected versus actual, and along the side you see a complete breakdown of the numbers, down to the individual sandwiches sold. There are a few things I'd like to point out here. 1. Not only are we on target, but we should finish out our first week well ahead of expectations. So great job to you and the whole team. Pass that on if you could. Oh, Chet said. He had expected to hear the opposite. Mr. Farrow was holding the chart upside down, Chet realized. Well, we've been busy enough. 2. Here's another chart. I'm not going to show this one to you, but it's how much this operation costs. Mr. Farrow took a deep breath. His eyes widened as he stared at the chart. Let's not beat around the bush here. It's ugly, but it's expected, and there's not much we can do about it for now. I just wanted you to know what we're up against. Mr. Farrow pulled a pen from his wrinkled suit and began scribbling something. Chet counted to 3 before asking, Is there anything else? Yes, I still don't have your replacement access token, but I brought you another towel to use as a pillow or blanket. But trust me when I say that the gears are turning, and you should have access to your cabin within the next week or 2, maybe sooner. Okay, that sounds good, Chet lied. He was careful to hide his disappointment. Given the circumstances, the last thing he needed was another lecture about employee morale. Chet moved to the exit. Wait, added Mr. Farrow. He held up the towel. Here. Chet snatched the musty strip of fabric and added it to the others in the corner. Mr. Farrow's office would become Chet's bedroom at the end of the day. The towels would become Chet's blanket and pillow. It made for a poor bed. But Chet had lost his access token. He was stuck living in the food court. Without another word, Chet rushed from the office and returned to the counter. Beatrix was gone. The mob hadn't gone anywhere. Chet let out a long sigh as he studied her empty register. Space wasn't supposed to be like this, he whispered. He turned his attention to the mob. Mr. Farrow had instructed Chet to improvise. Chet decided to improvise.